What if we told you that the world is on the brink of a global war? That the conflict between the US and China could trigger a chain reaction of problems? The chances of this happening are 50%, according to one of the most successful investors in history. Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, said that the US's limits on selling advanced computer chips to China are like the oil ban it put on Japan before the war in 1941. Ray Dalio has been visiting China for almost 40 years. He has made very good friends there and joined in its development, not for money but for meaningful work and relationships, and had plenty of both and felt a strong desire, like you would feel with your friends, to help. That has put him in the lucky and difficult position of being deeply connected to the two most powerful countries in the world, which are close to starting a war with each other. Dalio is in the middle, trying to help both while trying not to harm either side in the process of helping the other. He recently had 2 trips to China, lasting 13 days that included many meetings and talks with different people from different backgrounds. These trips, along with what he learned from other meetings with non-Chinese policymakers in other countries, including the US, and Chinese people and Chinese experts outside of China, have given him a perspective that he's going to share with you here and now. Ray Dalio explains that this means that they might have a war over sanctions or military actions that both sides do not want. But many think it will likely happen because A, they are almost at the point where they cannot accept each other's actions, B, they're trying to pressure each other by risking to cross these points, and C, politics will probably make them more aggressive in the next 18 months. Dalio stresses that by saying that they're very close, he does not mean that they will definitely start a war. He means that they're almost at the point where they will start a war that will hurt these two countries and the world in very bad and permanent ways. Like what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine and affected Russia and the world, but much worse. Ray Dalio claims that the US and China will face more tension in their relationship over the next 18 months because of the upcoming 2024 election season. He says that this will be a dangerous time because the two countries are very close to starting a war. Dalio says that the political schedule of the election cycle until the 2024 elections in the US and Taiwan will probably make the US more aggressive and hostile towards China. Ray gives an example of how some US lawmakers and their actions, such as hearings from Representative Gallagher's Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, along with most candidates for the president, the Senate, and the House of Representatives who want to please the people who want their leaders to confront China, as well as Taiwanese politics, will all probably push to the limit or beyond the lines that they cannot cross. He says that because the US and China are already on the verge of war, being too hard on China in the next 18 months will be very risky. He says that the US is challenging China's limits by stopping China from getting important chips. Dalio says that China is thinking about doing the same thing to an American company for the first time. He says that China might punish Micron Technology, which would hurt the company a lot because it gets about 25% of its money from China and Hong Kong, and that other American companies and companies that are friends with the US and needs to do business with China are scared and thinking about how to save themselves. Ray Dalio thinks that the relationship between the US and China is getting worse and that there is a risk that the US could stop trading with China because of its negative feelings towards it. He added that this would be like what happened in Russia, but much bigger and more harmful, and says that this would damage the production and exchange of goods and services very badly, and added that this would hurt the US, China, and the world a lot, at least, and could start a war at most. The Chinese international environment is another important factor. The governance is now more directorial autocratic, in their words legalist, run by Xi, with a tight and loyal team of capable followers whose backgrounds are more often from running provinces than working at the center of things in Beijing, with Marxist influences in favor of redistributions of wealth and opportunities with tolerable amounts of capitalism sprinkled in, i.e., enough to promote entrepreneurial inventiveness and business efficiencies. Xi has made it clear that he's preparing for the 100-year storm on the horizon. History has shown that at such times, some form of dictatorial autocratic management style is inevitable and most effective, and fragmented decision-making is least effective. During periods of war, even democracies become more autocratic, and the capitalist, top-down command economy resource allocation systems replaced profit-making resource allocation systems. Those who support Xi, which are most people, believe that this is what is now going on. Those who are more critical, including those who are more adversely affected by Xi's policies and some who disagree as a matter of principle, say that this is a self-centered move to consolidate his political power so Xi can do what he wants for as long as he wants without broad debate. In any case, China is now a high-controlled environment in which most important decisions come from the top down. There is great supervision, and many people, especially government officials and the elites, are afraid of misstepping. For example, there is CCP supervision over and embedded into just about everything, including most companies and non-company organizations. A high-ranking official told the author that this is a time to be very careful, a bit like in the Cultural Revolution. The extent to which this perception exists varies according to the circumstances of the people that bring them into contact with the changes. Most people are going about their lives, not noticing any big differences. Some say that this move to a more Maoist approach will pass, pointing to the period right after the Tiananmen incident as being just like this one, and that there was a return to a much more open and reforming environment. There is growing populism, i.e., individuals holding very strong adversarial views, while the government is trying to control them to be one view. Although there is united leadership, there is relatively high internal conflict among factions and people about a lot of things. There's now a problem of unemployment. The country needs 5% growth to create 15 million new jobs. Still, the government wants to encourage entrepreneurs, though the entrepreneurs are wary because being rich is no longer glorious. Policymakers want to control and reduce compensation, particularly in the financial sector, especially among government employees. In the public financial sector, which is undergoing significant institutional reform, many people, including bank employees and regulators, are getting pay cuts of 30 to 50%, causing them to leave the public sector for the private sector, and there are worries in the private financial sector that there will be pay limitations or high taxes. "You're earning too much" is a common phrase. The author was told that throughout Chinese history, it was not allowed for someone to be both rich and in a powerful government position. China, under this leadership, is more Marxist-communist, i.e., wanting to create more equal opportunities and outcomes, while the US is more capitalist, which leads to greater efficiencies and greater opportunity and greater wealth and income gaps. China is trying to come back. It's a big country that makes and sells many things to other countries, including the United States. China also has a lot of money that it saves and invests. One way that China invests its money is by buying US debt. US debt is like a loan that the US government takes from people or countries that have extra money. The US government promises to pay back the money with some interest after some time. US debt is considered a good investment because it's very safe and easy to buy and sell. The US government has never failed to pay back its debt, even when there are wars or crises. Many countries, banks, companies, and individuals buy US debt as a way to save their money and earn some income. China is one of the biggest buyers of US debt. As of January 2023, China owned about $859 billion of US debt, which is about 2.6% of the total US debt of $32.5 trillion. China lends a lot of money to many countries, especially for infrastructure projects. China also borrows money from other sources. Some people worry that China's loans are too risky or have hidden motives. China denies this and says it is helping development. Ray Dalio, the billionaire founder of the world's largest hedge fund, has a shocking prediction. China's collapse is a lot worse than you think, and it could lead to a brutal World War III. Comment your thoughts on Ray Dalio's vision of China, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.